Hi there everybody and welcome to today's live stream. We're going to be going through a slightly different topic today. I'm going to talk a little bit about neck pain with reference to migraines and headaches. Hope you guys find this one interesting. We're going to use some more real examples looking at actual x-ray images of the neck so you guys can better understand what's happening when you get a headache or migraine, and I'll explain a little bit later on why I'm using those terms interchangeably. Because given right now we're not able to necessarily see the GP, those sorts of things, and if we think, oh, I've got a migraine or a headache, I don't know which one it is, go through what we touch on today in this live stream, and hopefully you'll be able to see which one it is or which one it was. So without further ado, if we get into today's topics. So first of all, how can you get rid of headaches? At the end of this video, I'll go through some simple exercises which we've actually touched on before, but you'll understand why they're going to work for you. And then at the start of the video, we're going to cover normal neck alignment with examples so you can see exactly what's going on. We'll cover an abnormal neck example. This is just a neck x-ray taken from the clinic, and you'll see what I'm talking about, the differences between the two. And we'll actually go in and compare those, and then we'll look at where headaches and migraines actually could be coming from in the case of the neck. And that informs the final part, which is those exercises to actually fix that. So hopefully you guys find this really informative. And we've got to remember that the underlying structure of our neck is there to support and allow your neck to function effectively as a shock absorbing structure so that we don't get any pressure building up through the neck or indeed at the base of the skull, which can lead to things like headaches, especially if that structure is not absorbing shock very well. So first and foremost, if we cut straight to the chase, this is a normal neck. You can see just to the side of me. Now you'll notice a few bits and pieces. We've got the curve, we've got a green line on the back of the spine here that obviously you can see where the jaw is, you can see the base of the skull there. And you can see that nice smooth curve. If you're a bit of a visual person, you can imagine that curve absorbing shock when it's under load. So say, for example, you were perhaps riding a horse. You've got a nice shock absorbing mechanism there so that it's not going to put any undue stress through any of these muscles, ligaments or tendons. Now if we go to the base of the skull on the back portion, you'll see that there's a little gap between the very top vertebra and the base of the skull, and that's where some important nerves and blood vessels come out, and they actually go out of the skull here. They come over the top of the head and they control some of these muscles here. They also give sensations. You can get tingling if you irritate those nerves on the back of the head and those sorts of sensations. But this ties directly into headaches in particular, because if you put pressure on these nerves or restrict blood flow in these areas, then you can get a number of symptoms. Many include things that are often called headaches or migraines, and you'll often get a band-like pain around here, possibly pain between the eye, behind the eye. Sometimes it'll be on one side or the other because that area is jammed up. There's a bit of muscle spasm and it's restricting the blood flow and or nerve flow out of that section, and that is what leads to the headache type symptoms. But under normal circumstances, with a nice smooth neck curve like this, you'll see that it can absorb shock nicely. There's no pressure points on that neck, and I'll come back to this image a little bit later on and actually compare it side by side with a bad neck. But if we jump straight over and actually look at the bad neck now, we'll see the main issues that we have. And just before I do that, look at that smooth curve, the way it's lovely. The head is over the shoulders, the neck is in there, and it really is nice and smooth. There's no points that you can imagine that might be drawing extra pressure or taking extra pressure. Now if we look at the neck here, why does this not work well? Now it's the same image, it's just a slightly different view. And interesting enough, if you are curious about these images, we've got a video on our YouTube channel which actually talks through. This is taken from a before and after video we did where we looked at lower back x-rays and a neck x-ray as well, before and after we'd done the remodeling protocols, and I talked through the differences in both images before and after. So very interesting one. I think we'll put a link to that video, Laura, after this one, so you guys can actually watch that video because it's very interesting and talks how we change this in the clinic. But if we take a look over here at this particular image, you'll notice we've got the red line on there next to and the green line is exactly the same as the image that we saw previously, so you can get a flavor for the difference. Now we measure this using tangent angles, and this is a -8 degree curve. It should be 42, -42. Don't get bogged down by that detail, but just look at this section of the neck. We're looking at the same region, but you can see it's bolt straight. And if you've got this neck and you wonder, well, I get frequent migraines, headaches when I've got impact going through my body, maybe running, maybe riding a horse, as an example here, prompted me to actually do this particular video. So thank you for that. You know who you are if you're watching right now. But if we're on top of a horse and there's that impact going through our spine and we have this particular neck, and you won't know about this at all, unless you've actually had imaging done, you won't know that this is the case. This neck is not going to absorb shock in the same manner. And if we take a look at the top of that section, the base of the skull there, just the very top where the green line actually finishes, you can see that's that C1 vertebra. Well, just above that, you can see the skull, the gap where those blood vessels and nerves are coming out. And for future reference, I really need to get it so you guys can see my mouse where I'm pointing. But you can see the gap is much, much smaller than we saw earlier, and I'll touch on that in a moment. But this neck is not going to do as well with regards to absorbing shock effectively. And we've discussed in previous live streams as well that when we take a curve that should be like that and we straighten it substantially, the distance from A to B increases. So we're putting more tension through those muscles on a day in, day out basis. And that also runs its own risks and creates further issues. But when we're looking at it in the context of headaches, you can see that this sort of neck alignment is going to predispose you to getting those sorts of headaches. And that is something that you really want to be mindful of. Clear mechanical causes that could aggravate this region and give you those symptoms going over the head, etc., and sometimes behind the eye. It can sometimes feel like a compressive band as well. So now that you've got a sort of an isolated idea of what a normal neck is, what a bad neck is, let's look at them next to one another, because that'll give you a little bit more information. So this is the same region, same neck. I've just zoomed in, and also, by the way, if you guys find these videos where I'm actually talking through the actual x-rays on the screen so you can better understand, if you find them helpful, please do let us know in the comments, because we can always do more of these, because it's actually good fun. It gives me subject matter to talk about whilst I'm talking to you. But if we look at the image on the bottom, again, we see a nice large space underneath the skull where those nerves can come out. We've got a neck curve that can absorb shock effectively. So biomechanically, this is very sound. It can deal with the stress and strain of impact coming up and down through the spine without putting undue stress on any structures. When we look at the top image, you can see that the only area that really has a little bit of backward bending is right at that very top section. Underneath it, it's bolt straight, and therefore all of those joints underneath that are there to take the load and the pressure off will not be doing their fair share of shock absorption. So the base of the skull, the transition between the upper neck and the base of the skull, is having to do all of that shock absorbing. And if we're doing something that's got repetitive stress through that neck or through the spine in general, like running, like riding a horse, or other impact activities, it's going to lead to a lot of dampening needs to take place in one small area rather than throughout the entire cervical spine and further down. So this is what leads to the risk of that particular area being compromised and then leading to things like headaches. Now this brings me to sort of the last part of this video today, where we're actually saying, okay, well, I've been told I've got a migraine, and you're talking a lot about headaches, and we get this time and time again in the clinics. Patients come in and say, I've got a migraine, I've had migraines for a long period of time, they get worse, X, Y, Z. And the problem with migraines is that the term migraine is often so readily bandied about. It almost means a bad headache at this stage, when technically speaking, if you look at the literature, that is not what a migraine is. So a lot of patients may be led to believe they've got a migraine, which is actually much more complex than a simple headache. And we have patients coming into the clinic where they say, well, I get migraines, I get really bad migraines, etc. And we say, okay, that's fine. Let's do a neck x-ray. We have a look at the alignment, etc. And we start a course of treatment, and we get them to do some of the exercises that I'm going to mention to you guys today. And it gets rid of the migraines. And I would therefore propose to you that actually it wasn't a migraine in the first place. It was actually a cervicogenic headache, which is much more clearly defined as some neck dysfunction irritating the nerves or blood vessels that then can lead to symptoms of a headache that I've described through this video. So the crux of that is, I'm going to go through these exercises in a minute. Even if you think you've got migraines or have been diagnosed with migraines before, these exercises are super safe. They're really, really effective. And if you try them over the next 3, 4, 5 days, or next time you get a migraine, give them a go. And I would argue do them before you get a migraine, because if you've got a neck like this one here, you will be prone to getting them, and doing the exercises on a daily basis will remedy some of the challenges that your neck has to face. So if you do these exercises and you note that there's a decrease or decline in the frequency of your migraines, then that you can really draw the conclusion that actually it wasn't really a migraine, it was a headache that's just maybe been misdiagnosed in the past. And the reason I say that is because if someone gets diagnosed with migraines, it's much more of a psychologically difficult diagnosis to take, because there's not a lot you can do out there. It's something that really affects people quite a lot. Whereas if you actually realize, well, maybe it is actually just a headache, it can really massively improve the person's psyche. The positivity and the outlook on the overall problem is something that's much more manageable, it's much more possible to deal with, and therefore you can really make a change in your circumstances and be much more in control with your health and well-being. So that kind of gets me to the last part, and I'll go through the exercises. So what are we trying to do when we're doing this? In fact, if we take it back to the image of the normal alignment, because we want to restore the normal alignment, we want to take you back to this sort of position that you can see on the screen now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that band, I don't have it to hand right now, but we're going to take the band, we're going to place it in the middle of the neck, and we're going to literally pull and look up. Pull and look up, and what that's doing is that's reorientating that curve. So as the spine comes up, it goes straight into the skull at the base of the base of the skull, and just opens out this area at the bottom here. If you didn't use the band and you just looked up, you're just going to jam up that area and put more pressure on those nerves and blood vessels, and it won't work quite as well. The next one you're going to do is you're going to take the towel. Now, I have actually seen previous exercises where they recommend using some small balls in this area and tucking the chin down and massaging the area, but I would argue that's not necessarily the best approach. Using the towel in the middle of the neck to support the neck curve, so that you imagine your neck looking like this one on the screen just there. You imagine that nice smooth curve, backward curve through the middle portion of your neck, and your head just relaxing backwards. That will take pressure off the whole cervical complex and the way in which it feeds into the top part of your neck and into the skull, and therefore realign everything in a much more effective way. And then doing that for around about 3 to 5 minutes, and following this procedure 2 or 3 times a day. So you do 10 or 15 reps with your band, nice and slow, nice and gentle, and you can check out those videos. We've got them on the YouTube channel, so you can see exactly how to do those, of me walking through those. And then you jump straight on that towel for 3 to 5 minutes. When you've finished, hold your head nicely and roll off, as we do in that example as well. And I think we'll try and put links to these in the description so you can see all of these. 10 to 15 reps of the one, 3 to 5 minutes on the towel. And you could also potentially use a little bit of ice on the neck here, because if there's some inflammation around the base of the skull here, and that's irritating the nerves and blood vessels as well, creating a bit of congestion in that region, the ice will also take that down. So again, that's going to be 3 to 5 minutes with that. And I'd encourage you, if you've got migraines or suffer with migraines or headaches, either one, do this routine every day for 3 or 4 days, and really see and evaluate how you are at the end or in the back end of that procedure. With most spine related problems, be it back pain or neck pain, they tend to build up over a period of time, and people readily try something once but don't necessarily give it the full time it needs to have an effect, especially if we're doing things that are not necessarily so good for our neck on a daily basis. So if you are regularly sat on the phone like that, you're actually creating that bad alignment that we saw in the earlier images. So being mindful of those things, not doing the bad things for your neck, doing this little new exercise, and see if that does improve your migraines. We'd love to hear how you get on with that, so do please comment in the comment section below if you've given this, if you do give this a go. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And that is pretty much it for today's content. We're on to Q&A. So Lara, have we got any questions for today's videos?
Yes, just quickly about the icing. Obviously, we recommend icing for the lower back and sort of the lower neck. So where would you ice if you're having a migraine? Is it that upper portion?
So yeah, with the icing, the easiest way to do is take a scarf or a towel, pop the ice on the back of your neck here, and just hold the towel there, almost the same way you're holding the band, so it's supporting the whole of the neck up here. I really wouldn't restrict it to one area of the neck. I'd have it just running basically from the base of your hairline all the way down to where a necklace might sit, or where my t-shirt collar sits. That would be the best position for the icing. And again, 3 to 5 minutes, no longer than that, please. And do it in a good position, good posture.
Now, if you don't have exercise bands for the neck extension pull, can you just use a towel?
Yeah, if you don't have exercise bands, then just use a towel, a small rolled up towel, maybe the one that you might use where you hold it around, where you have it in your a hand towel that might be in the bathroom, or a kitchen towel that might be in the kitchen. They're smaller, so the rope's maybe going to be that big there, and that can go right in the middle of the neck. Remember not to be too aggressive with this exercise. We're being gentle here and getting a little bit of movement through that middle section of your cervical spine, so that it can feed more nicely into the base of the skull.
Okay, got a question here. What sleeping positions would you recommend for someone that suffers with headaches or migraines?
So generally speaking, the best sleeping position, I'll give you two. Number one is something that actually really helps, is if you roll up the corner. If you've got an old pillow, roll up the corner so it actually almost kind of forms the towel sort of position. Do not sleep on the towel, because I think having done these exercises and doing these exercises and having that academic knowledge of the exercise in of itself, I think that's probably a little bit too much to do. But rolling up the cushion, like the temper pillows, where it's high underneath the neck and then it fades off so it's got room for your head to sit, that sort of position would be good. Anything, just imagine that picture that we showed you earlier of the normal alignment of the spine. Just imagine anything that supports that process. Remember, our head sticks back a bit and our neck comes in, so anything that supports that. Secondary to that is going to be sleeping on your side. We want a pillow that supports the gap between where the mattress is and where your head is, so it needs to be the appropriate size. You want to be nice and square on. You don't want to be wonky off to this one side or the other, because that's gonna jar things. And then don't sleep curled up in a ball. Sleep as if you're stood up looking on the horizon, and not down or excessively up either. In a nice neutral position is going to be the best sleeping position. If you sleep on your front, you're going to have to stop or put up with the neck pain, because sleeping on your front is just not good for the neck. Unless you sleep on a plinth like we've got in the clinic, where you can be perfectly symmetrical and perfectly neutral. Front sleepers are people that notoriously struggle with these things because of the crooked nature of your neck when you're sleeping in that position. And I say that being someone who sleeps on my front, so I know the stress and strain it puts on your neck, and there's not a lot you can do about it, but you need to sleep.
I wonder if they make face hole pillows. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you can be very creative with the way in which you use pillows to allow you to effectively sleep on your front, and maybe that's one for another video. But long story short, sleeping on your front is just not a good idea if you have any sorts of neck or headache related issues. I really would try and advise against it.
Awesome. Jules just left a comment. She said the x-rays are helpful to see what you're talking about.
Oh, awesome. So that's awesome. Cool. I'll try and get it so that you guys can see my mouse. I'm not quite sure how to do that with the software, but I will definitely do that for future videos, so that we can actually, you guys really understand exactly what I'm talking about. I hope I got the message across on today's video, but for future we will try and figure that out. We can make the mouse glow or something like that on your screen.
Awesome. And I will put all of the links to the exercises that you mentioned on this thread. And just lastly, not related to the neck, lower back question, Mandy just wanted to know about the positioning of the towel.
Yep. So the positioning of the towel, I don't know if you guys will be able to see me when I do this. Essentially, you find those two bony dimples at the base of your spine. You come into the middle where they meet, and you come up like an inch like that. So on me, that made a bang. So they're there on me, and then the towel would go about there. So it's actually convenient that my arm is just long enough to sit right behind me. But those are the two bony bits, and it's right above. If you put the towel down here and it's rounding you like that, you will be making the problem substantially worse. So it must feel like it's reinforcing that arc in the lumbar spine. Find those two bony bits. Your spine has actually finished at those two bony bits. You're into the sacrum there, and it goes just above there, about an inch. That's where the towel should go, and you should definitely feel that process of arching in the lower back. Maybe your bum's touching the floor, and then obviously your rib cage area is touching the floor, and your back is forming a little bridge over the top, and you have your knees up. That is how that should be done, if you're doing it correctly.
Mandy's just commented. She said she had it too low. I did the same thing. Do you remember that?
It is done. I remember you doing it. I think was after a workout or something.
That was
like
after a workout. I did it too low, and I said, "Oh, that's really uncomfortable."
Yeah. So what you're doing, if it's one of those ones where you need to put it in the middle, and really watch the video again in the membership site in the Facebook group, because that curve needs to be there. If we don't, the purpose of this exercise is to unload the discs so that we get that decompression effect to give them that respite and unload all the muscles. And if we put it too low, you're actually putting more stress through the muscles, more stretch through the ligaments that they don't need, and you're compressing the discs more. So it's really important to clarify that, and maybe we'll do a little video on that at some point in the next couple of days or so to actually go through that maybe
do you
in more
think for
detail.
ladies it would almost be like where a low waist belt would fit almost?
No, it'd be more where a high-waisted belt would sit, because it sits on top. So you've got your that's where the bony bit on the side is kind of here, and that is the level that I've got weirdly long legs. It's quite strange. That's about where the towel would go through, because the bony bit is down here. So that's another reference point for you, because the bony bit's just here. If you can see, there's the one of them, and that's where my hip is. So actually level with here would be appropriate as well. Would be one and the same. If that helps you find the area, that's actually the iliac crest on the side, but it should be on the spine at the back there. Hope that makes more sense.
She said she's got it. Just
Awesome.
last question. Sorry, going back to the headache. Joe's just asked, how about icing the head for headaches?
I mean, that might help. I don't know. If you're feeling that it's bothering you and making you just feel uncomfortably warm and hot, then I guess that wouldn't be a bad idea. Yeah. I'm not aware of anything more on that one.
No, me neither.
But, anything else? Any other questions?
Just double check YouTube. No, that's all good.
All good?
Yeah, all
Okay,
done.
awesome. Well, I thanks for the comment. I don't know who that was about the
Jules.
X-rays, Jules. Thank you very much for that. We will look to do some more active use of X-rays, so you guys can see exactly what we're talking about, because that's one of the things that we do in the clinic, using X-rays to better understand and help patients. And when you know your own body from an X-ray point of view, it really helps you understand it in that deeper way, so you can do more of the right things and less of the wrong things. So, hope that's been helpful. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we will see you on Monday for the next live stream. Have a great one. Bye.